figure before I clean up their bird cage, I want to kind of go over the importance of why it's important to own an air purifier if you own birds, especially birds with other animals. Because it's one of the most overlooked things when people keep birds and stuff like that. They think you just get cage, food, toys, and that's it, and nothing else. One thing to note is birds do put out a lot of particulates, and they're also sensitive to a lot of gases and stuff like that that you might not even know is in the air. But if they happen to catch whiff of it, it could actually kill the bird. And I have seen it happen, for example, where if a next door neighbor does construction and they're putting out a lot of pollutants in the air, the bird ends up having health issues and a month later ends up dying from it. It has happened and will happen. That's why it's critical to get a good air purifier, and one that does gases as well, so that way you can filter out that stuff. So that way your birds are less likely to suffer from it, and you're yourself. Now, it's important to stay away from ionized based or electronic based air purifier systems, because those will actually create ozone in a small confined space. And even though ozone, like say in the rainforest, is there, it's in a larger area, so of course the birds can fly away from it. In a small confined space, it can actually kill your birds and also cause you health issues too down the road. So I always say go with a HEPA mechanical based air purifier system. And then when you do pick a HEPA based air purifier system, go for one that's actually rated for double your square footage room. So let's say you have a 300 square foot room, go with one for a 600 square foot room, because birds put out a lot of particulate and it's gonna clog the filters very quickly. Also make sure too you clean out the pre-filters and use a HEPA based sealed vacuum when you're actually cleaning out the pre-filters. Then that way you're not putting the particulates right back in the air out of the vacuum, of course, as you're vacuuming, so that's important too. Now, I didn't clean up their cage yet, just to show you pretty much. You can see some of the particulates just on the actual cage bars and stuff like that. And you can see a little bit of the dust and stuff like that, and that's what they're going to put off. And you know, they do it because they're molting or whatever, or they're pringing and stuff like that. And it's just going to happen. It's natural for them. But you don't want them breathing this stuff in constantly, or yourself either, because it cause respiratory issues and stuff like that. So always make sure you also clean up the cage, because the poop also dries up too, and that particularly can also get into the air too and stuff like that if you don't clean. I clean the cage daily, so it's not a problem, but always make sure you keep up with the cage, and make sure you do keep up with the air purifier, and also clean the air purifier too, so that way it stays in good shape and stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and in the next part of the video, I'm going to go and show you the wall that I actually use to monitor the air quality. I also got a counter too and stuff like that I use, a handheld one. But then to get a glance over, I do got, for example, for carbon dioxide, monoxide. I also got for air particulates and everything else you can think of, so that way I can see how the air quality is, and if I have to vent or if I have to clean out the filters in the air purifier, I'll know by looking at the meters and stuff like that. And this here is my air quality wall, my meters that I use to actually get a glance of what the air quality is. And the first one here is a carbon dioxide meter, dioxide, not monoxide. And this one here monitors the carbon dioxide levels and also the humidity and temperature, and it's a very good meter. And I do have auto vent, so that way when it gets too high, it actually vents out, so that way then, you know, I can get fresh air back in here, and it brings down the carbon dioxide levels too. This one here is for monoxide, and this one here measures the monoxide levels, and also if, let's just say, a pipe goes ahead and leaks, and I don't know about gas pipe leaking, this will kind of tell me that, hey, look, you got a leak, you better go ahead and check it. And then here's another air purifier, and I'll get to that in a second. This one here I use mostly to monitor outdoor temperature and the humidity outside, but it also has an indoor one. The problem with the indoor humidity is it's not as accurate because the wood soaks up, and because the sensors in back of it, it actually measures the wood pretty much, moisture and stuff like that, not really the air like the other one does. This one here is a laser meter, and this one here actually just detects the particles that's actually in the air, as far as down to 2.5. They do got better ones that go down. I just use this pretty much to glance over to see if, you know, the air quality is really bad and I need to change the filters in this guy. Now this one does have a laser one built into it, and it got the laser counter, which I was actually quite surprised. But probably one of the only air purifiers that I know that actually measures the air quality, which is nice. And this one's made by Rabbit Air, and it's probably one of the most recommended that I can tell you. I even recommend to anyone that wants to get into air purifiers, because it's a really good air purifier. And it does do gas odors, and it does do HEPA, and you can actually customize this one. And it does have an air quality meter built into it, so it'll ramp up and ramp down automatically, or you can put it in manual mode if you want, when it detects that there's a lot of particles in the air. Now, just to show you how dusty one of these gets, and this is just, I cleaned this 3 days ago, and you can see the pre-filters already starting to catch a lot of the cockatooed white dust pretty much. And this is one of the reasons why you need to get an air purifier, because if it wasn't for this thing, you would be breathing that stuff in, and it's actually a lot worse because the filters are actually filtering down the smaller particles, which is in way back in the back of the filter media that you don't even see, and that stuff you'll be breathing in on a daily basis. Now I'm going to go over humidifiers in a second, so I'll be right back. And one of the most overlooked things people do when they have a pet bird, and that is owning a humidifier. And, you know, in some ways I don't blame, because it's not talked about much, and, you know, people don't know why you need a humidifier, so they don't think you need one. Or you get those that try to get one, they get those ultrasonic based humidifiers that are pure crap and don't recommend them to anyone. But you need a proper humidifier, and I always say go with a large evaporated based humidifier like this one here, which will do a large space. And if you have even a bigger space, get 2 of them. And the reason for that is because it's absolutely necessary, and I think it should be a requirement, especially if you live in a state where you get harsh winters for several months out of the year, or even if you get harsh winters period, because your humidity levels can drop down to single digits. And you know how you get chapped skin and dry skin? It's due to low humidity. And with birds, it even does worse to them, and it makes them feel discomfort, and one of the reasons why they start plucking and stuff like that too as well, because lack of humidity makes their skin itchy, and now next thing you know, they're plucking or overpringing and everything else. So you definitely should get a humidifier if you own a bird, and it also helps keep you from getting sick and stuff like that too, you yourself. Now, one thing about humidifiers, and no, I don't got the humidity level at 55 like it says on the display, is that the humidistat is actually off on this thing, and the actual room's about 45 to 47 humidity level throughout the house, but it says 55 because unfortunately that thing's out of calibration. And it seems like there are all these humidifiers, I don't know why they don't make a humidistat that's actually pretty accurate, but it's probably due to based on location too, because they got the cord running on the back where the actual wick media is right there, so obviously it's going to pick up more humidity there than it would be in the house, so it's about 10% off and so forth. So it's one of those things I do know about, and I just go ahead and compensate for that. But one thing though is you don't want to go too high on the humidity level during the winter too. Like, you don't want to set it 55 when your temperature is below 20 degrees, because what will happen is you'll create too much condensation, and then that will go ahead and damage your wood, your windowsills, and everything else, because now you got water buildup and stuff like that. And then in general, humidity level never go up to 60% humidity level, because if you do, then you can cause mold growth and everything else and stuff like that, and that's something you do not want to get into. So just always keep it below 55 during the summertime, and during the winter time go relative base to temperature. So if your temperature is like 20 degrees, try to keep it at around 40 to 35, you know what I mean? And if it gets lower than that, then try to keep it up to at least 30. If it gets, colder than about 30-40 degrees, then keep it around 50. And always use, and they got a chart online that you can follow that you can set your humidity level so you don't cause too much condensation. But one of the dead giveaways, if you are actually putting out too much humidity during the winter time, just look at your windows. If you see a lot of water build up on all your windows and stuff like that, then you're putting out too much humidity and you'll cause condensation issues and stuff like that. But also the other important thing is you do have to maintenance these things. And you do have to take the wick out. You do have to clean the container and tanks and stuff like that. And usually just use vinegar and water and mix it in there. Let it sit there for 30 minutes and then let the wick soak that up. And clean. Always use biostat when you're actually refilling water to keep, bacteria and stuff from growing inside too. And this will keep your humidity or your humidifier in good shape, and it also keep bacteria from getting back into the air and causing you and your birds to get sick, of course. So always make sure you maintenance your humidifier every 2 weeks and use biostat when you're actually filling it with water, and make sure you use a evaporated based humidifier and stay away from ultrasonic humidifiers, because ultrasonic humidifiers can put out too much humidity to the air, and that's what causes water to drop and literally gather around the humidifiers, a lot of people say. And then number 2, they usually don't make them this big anyway, where they can do a larger space. And then 3, they'll actually put the minerals and everything else from the water and the calcium and all that back into the air, therefore leaving white deposits and stuff like that on furniture and everything else. Now some of them do got filters to help with that, but generally, I always say stay away from ultrasonic humidifiers. They end up always usually putting out bacteria and stuff back into the air, and I do not recommend them. I only recommend going with evaporated based humidifier for larger areas. So this will conclude the video, and hopefully this will go and give you some tips when bird keeping, what you need and some of the requirements needed when housing a bird in captivity pretty much. And lastly, for one of the most overlooked things is when you're vacuuming and cleaning up after your birds to keep your air quality good. A lot of people, what they do is they buy these cheap portable vacuums because it's easier to maneuver for them and it gets the job what they think is done. But in all honesty, what you're doing is putting the particles right back into the air because they don't have a HEPA filter or a HEPA bag. And therefore all the stuff you're just doing is just throwing it right back in there. You might as well just use a shop vac, which will essentially do the same thing. It'll throw all the stuff right back in there. They're only good for picking up the very large particles, but a lot of the smaller stuff goes right back into the air because there's nothing to stop it. So what I do is use a good vacuum with a HEPA based filter or a bag if you have one that uses a bag. But make sure you use that, and that'll keep a lot of particles from going back in the air and keep your air quality good and your filter from having to work double time because you just threw everything right back into the air. And this is why it's important to vacuum up regularly now, because you can see all this stuff, even with the good air filtration system. You can see all those feather seeds and everything else that they lay out, because these are larger particles that fall down and stuff like that. And as they molt, which one of them is molting, that's why you see a lot of that, it gets back down to the ground. So that's pretty much what you need to keep the air quality good for your birds and to keep yourself from getting sick and your birds getting sick. I already went ahead and cleaned up the cage, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this back up, and this concludes the video. And one of the most important things to keeping the air quality good and pollutants down is to clean your cage daily. I shouldn't have to stress. There's some people that do it only weekly or they do it every other day. I do mine every day pretty much. And what I mean by every day is you want to change the paper, you want to clean the bars, you want to clean the surrounding areas, the walls, the floors, where they go ahead and get feathers, dust, whatever, or seeds and stuff around, and clean that up every day. And the reason for that is so your air purifier there doesn't have to work as hard, and therefore it's not picking up as much pollutants either, because they got a Phi cell cartridge in there which takes care of the gas and odors and stuff. And the more it happens to absorb, the least it's going to last longer, and then you have to buy a new one. It's one of the main complaints with this IQ Air especially is a lot of people say after 6 months they get a sweet musty smell out of it, and what happens is that the Phi cartridge has gone bad and absorbed as much as it could, and now it's deabsorbing all the stuff that's picked up over time. So you want to make sure you clean up. If you clean up, that will keep that filter lasting a very long time, and then you don't have to worry about it changing it every 6 months and can get a year out of it like it's supposed to get. But the reason why they go bad is because people don't clean up. They expect the filter to do all the job, and now the filter said, hey, look, I can't hold anymore. What do you want me to do? So clean up the cage, clean up the surrounding areas, make sure there's no odors, clean up any source of odors and pollutants and stuff like that, and then you won't have a problem, and you'll keep the air quality very good. Your birds will be happy and more healthier. You'll be happy, more healthier, and you won't have health issues down the road and stuff like that. And I always do. I clean the bars, I clean the trays, I clean the toys, I change the bottom paper of the poop, and when you change that, make sure you vacuum out any loose debris and stuff like that so you're not putting it back into the air either, or wet it, which is what some people do, and then roll it up and then put it into the actual garbage bag. And why you want to wet it? Because it keeps the stuff from floating upwards, of course. But it's very important you do this, and you'll maintain your air quality, you'll maintain your bird's health and your health. And it's something that's easy to do. You can make a routine of it every morning. You get used to it, and you can definitely find the time to do it. Unless you're working like business trips and stuff like that, then you shouldn't be owning an animal anyway. But if you really don't have the time, then don't get the animal, because when you took on the animal, you also took on the responsibility of clean up and care for them, because they can't clean up and care for themselves like they can in the wild. So you took on that responsibility. Make sure you keep up with it so that way they stay happy and alive for a long time.